I want you to think back to the days when you were at primary or elementary school, when the best time of the day would no doubt be playtime. You'd hear that bell ring, it didn't matter what the teacher was talking about, it didn't matter if the weather was ideal outside and you didn't have to be into sports, but you'd be outside running, jumping, hopping, skipping, play fighting, tumbling, climbing places that you weren't permitted to climb, spinning around in circles with intent to get yourself dizzy. We push our bodies out of our comfort zones just for the fun of it. Our heart rate would be at high intensity, and at no stage would we consider any of those activities as a chore. Rather, we would be producing endorphins at levels that adults would seek through class A drugs because we'd want to do the activity again and again and again. Have you ever asked yourself the question, at what stage in our development into adulthood do we lose that love for movement? Hi, my name is Jonathan Crawford. You can call me Coach Jayci, and I'm what you call a fundamental movement specialist. Fundamental movements are the range of movements that you'd see children typically exhibit in the playground without adult intervention. Now, in order to facilitate that, they would play games. You just have to think about the games that you and I would have played when we were at elementary school, like tag or bulldog or skipping. Now, we see this from an adult standpoint as being really silly. And maybe at some point you need to grow out of these silly games that we're playing. However, if we look at it from an anthropological standpoint, we tend to appreciate that the infants, particularly mammals, will be prepping themselves and conditioning for survival, such as combat to establish their place in the hierarchy, or escaping from predators, or hunting. Now, granted, we don't need to worry about those concerns in today's safe and protected society. However, the body is still the ultimate use it or lose it machine. Whereas if we do not challenge our limbs and our joints to move in several different directions, like we did when we were children, they inevitably become immobile, cumbersome, stiff. It is a common misconception and pretty much a bugbear of mine that most people believe that as we age, we become immobile. To be more accurate, we become immobile because we fail to move. And it is that causes us to fall out of love with movement. Now, I've been working in the field of sports and fitness coaching for about 13 years now. And I remember way back when I was doing my undergrad, we were asked to actually design a majorly independent study where we had to come up with a scientific conclusion. And for my study, I wanted to find out which high intensity exercises produce endorphins that we would consider as fun. Fun, I would categorize as something that you'd want to do again, maybe that afternoon or the next day. So I gave my subjects, which were 22 of them, a bunch of exercises that you would see normally in an exercise program in the gym. And then they had to do a bunch of exercises the next day, which is like challenging them to move in 4 different planes. The 4 planes are forward and backwards, which is known as the sagittal plane, laterally, which is known as the frontal plane, turning and twisting, which is known as the transverse plane, and up and down, which is the vertical plane. Now, after participating in both activities, I then gave them a questionnaire. Which ones did they want to do again the next day, and which ones would they consider as a bit of a chore? Now, of the 22 subjects, 2 of them said they didn't want to do either. That's kind of typical, but however, we ended up with the other 20 saying without question that they wanted to take part in the activities that required them to move in the 4 different planes. This explains the reason why we love dancing, for example, because it's not just the music that makes us feel the endorphins, but it's the movement. Anything that challenges us to move in so many different directions produces endorphins and makes you want to do it again. This is nature's way of encouraging us to move. The sad news is that we're part of a culture which teaches us since childhood that we are more successful if we do less moving, i.e., getting a comfortable car or having a chauffeur for us, having a desktop job rather than a manual job, ordering things through Uber or through Amazon rather than going to the store and doing it ourselves. At some point, this lack of movement in our lives is what causes us to sustain injuries that we end up having to nurse for the rest of our lives. And we're seeing people in their 20s and 30s sustaining injuries from simple tasks like painting and decorating the house, cleaning, doing the gardening. Now, hopefully, I don't sound like I'm just sitting here preaching from on high. I'm a walking testimony to somebody who went down the same path as everybody else, left school at the age of 18, was always active playing sports for fun, and then I no longer have access to those facilities anymore. So I'm picking up weight. What do I do to tackle that? Go for a run like everybody else does. No disrespect to anybody who likes to go for a run, but I hated it. I was always out doing activities that required me to run in short spurts, maximum intensity, short periods of time. So the only alternative was to go to the gym. You go to the gym, you sign up, you get your induction on how to use the machines, and then you're left to your own devices. Now, unless you've got the money to hire a personal trainer all the time, then you do what everybody else does and you learn through monkey see, monkey do. I'm watching everybody around me and just wanted to copy them in order to get their respect. I see somebody bench pressing 70, 80 kilograms and I'm thinking, well, I must be able to do that as well. Or somebody on the treadmill running for about an hour and I try and do the same thing as them. Curling 25 kilograms and I'm aiming to do that as well. The good thing was I looked great. I had the six pack. I was able to bench press 80 kilograms and I was also able to run on the treadmill for about an hour on a daily basis. I had the six pack, but you could blow me over with a fart. My car was absolutely weak. I was able to bench press 80 kilograms. I couldn't lift anything. But the worst thing of all of them was the fact that my running was unable to allow me or empower me to be able to run for the bus. What's the point in all of that? Now, don't get me wrong. Of course, it's nice to look great. There's no point really going to the gym if there is no evidence of you looking good and achieving anything. But if that's the only reason why we're going to the gym, then let's be honest with ourselves. It's all just a vanity project. Now, one day after working out in the gym, I'm feeling these shooting sensations down my left leg. I'm thinking, maybe it's something to do with the running. Anyway, I tried to ignore it, but it persisted. So I ended up going to the doctor, who then recommended a physio. The physio continued to attack my legs with his stretching and massaging and what have you for about a year. But it was getting worse, progressively worse and worse until my legs began to shake severely. Then one fateful day, my legs collapsed beneath me. I rushed off to hospital. They conducted an MRI scan and identified that I was actually 6 weeks away from paralysis at the age of 28. Well, what caused it? What caused it was the fact that I was doing exercises that were isolated and had nothing to do with normal life. This was causing an imbalance in my spine and a prolapse disc that was pressing upon my central nervous system. Now, they had to fly in a surgeon to do the procedure for me, cut away all the work that I had done in the gym on my back muscles, break two of my ribs, deflate my lungs, and chip away at the offending vertebrae. Thankfully, 3 months later, I learned to walk again. I learned to move my arms again. But I pledged that I would never go down that road again of just going to the gym only to look good. Now, I do emphasize only because I do want you to look good as well. But I designed this program for both so that we can focus primarily on developing the skills that are functional, that allow us to remain mobile, to be able to enjoy moving all over again. And the byproduct of that will be losing weight, looking great. Now, if this is something that chimes with you, I encourage you to try the 14-day free program. This is a journey because even though now I feel that I've trimmed at least 20 years of my life off back to feeling like a child, still more to learn. And I'm sure this journey will continue to the rest of our lives. But at least we'll go back to enjoying life the way we did when we were children. Thank you very much for your time. I hope to see you on the other side.